Right now, on to the point. A parasite making people sick around the country. Tonight, what could be behind it and how to stay safe.
I'm still eating fresh fruits and vegetables.
The new federal affordable housing law aims to stop corporate buyers. What it means for California. A new legal fight is brewing over California's parole system. How changes could lead to shorter sentences.
Life without parole really should mean life without parole.
And no more springing forward or falling back. The growing push to make daylight saving time permanent. We are following multiple breaking news stories happening in Northern California. As always, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Alex Bell. Let's jump right to it. First, a fire burning in Nevada County. This is the Kearney fire. It's burning near Penn Valley in Smartsville. We know that evacuation orders and warnings, they are now in effect. CAL FIRE says it's burned 41 acres now with no containment. PG&E says power is out for more than 4,000 people in the area. We do have a crew on the way, and we're watching this fire very closely. Let's head out to the Bay Area. We know that at least one person is dead and 2 people are missing after a 3-deck pontoon boat caught on fire and sank in the San Francisco Bay. A dog also died. This happened between the Golden Gate Bridge and Alcatraz Island. Officials say there were 19 people on board. 16 were rescued, and windy conditions are making the search and rescue efforts very challenging out there. And then this is a live look from downtown Sacramento tonight, where PG&E crews are working on repairing a broken gas line. Construction crews hit the line this afternoon at the intersection of 11th and 8th Streets. That intersection just reopened about 20 minutes ago. Cal EPA building was evacuated, as well as a couple of nearby hotels. And you've probably been hearing about outbreaks of a parasite making people sick popping up across the U.S. There is a lot of chatter and concern about this, but there also are ways that you can protect yourself. AB's 10's Beck Hotbegger spoke with an infectious disease specialist and joins us this evening.
Alex, let's start with the good news, okay? The California Department of Public Health says California is not one of the states currently experiencing an increase in cases of cyclosporiasis. Now, that's an intestinal illness caused by the microscopic Cyclospora parasite. In fact, California has only seen 40 cases statewide this year, and that's down by half from this time last year. Still, there are ways to keep ourselves safe.
People who have Cyclospora infection have gastrointestinal illness, and that's primarily manifested through diarrhea, watery diarrhea that can be explosive. And this is associated with other symptoms such as nausea, bloating, and cramps. It usually is not associated with fever or vomiting, and that differentiates it from other causes of gastrointestinal illness.
Dr. Dean Blumberg is professor and chief of pediatric infectious diseases at UC Davis Health. While uncomfortable, he says the illness is not usually life-threatening and is treatable with antibiotics. He says unlike other gastrointestinal illnesses like E. coli infection or food poisoning, cyclosporiasis takes a while for symptoms to develop.
The average time between getting exposed to the organism and then having symptoms is about a week, but it can be up to 2 weeks.
He says that's a big reason why health officials elsewhere in the U.S. where cyclosporiasis is spreading are having trouble pinpointing the exact source of contamination.
When you're investigating an outbreak, what you would do is you would interview people and say, tell me what you ate the week or 2 before you first had symptoms. And many people can't remember specifically what they ate. And then even if they do remember, then to go back and try to test those foods, if they're fresh foods, they may not be available, so you may not be able to confirm the source.
He says cyclosporiasis is generally not spread person to person.
It's spread via contaminated food.
Nationwide, the CDC has confirmed more than 1,600 cases across more than 30 states since the start of May and is aware of more than 5,000 additional cases that await further analysis. Specifically, the CDC is identifying a multi-state outbreak linked to Michigan, Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky. In Michigan, public health officials say early information points to lettuce or salad greens as a possible culprit. On Tuesday, the Taco Bell restaurant chain issued a statement saying it had voluntarily and temporarily removed limited ingredients at select restaurants as a precautionary measure.
If they can identify exactly what's causing this and exactly what products, and then recall those, then I think we'd have a lot more confidence.
Dr. Blumberg says fresh fruits and vegetables are part of a healthy diet, and since there's not an outbreak in California, he still recommends people eat them. But it's always good to take precautions.
Washing fresh fruits and vegetable under cold running water is appropriate. It may not totally eliminate any contamination, but it reduces the contamination, and that reduces risk of infection.
Now, Dr. Blumberg said people with mild cases can usually just manage symptoms at home, and the body's immune system will eventually kill off the Cyclospora. But if symptoms are lasting more than 3 or 4 days and it's interrupting your life, he says that's a good time to go to your primary doctor. Again, California health officials say only 40 cases have been identified here so far this year. That's lower than last year at this point, and they say we are not seeing an outbreak at this time.
All right, in Washington tonight, we are learning more about President Trump's planned address to the nation on Thursday. The president says that it will focus on free and fair elections.
It's really, really big news, and our country has to shape up. But that's what we're going to be talking about Thursday is it doesn't get bigger, because without free and fair elections, you don't have a country. We'll be discussing other things too, but it's going to be a very big announcement. Yeah.
And you can watch President Trump's address this Thursday, July 16th at 6 p.m. right here on ABC 10. Well, despite gridlock in Washington, a bipartisan housing affordability bill is now law. Experts call it one of the biggest housing reforms in decades. But what could it mean for us here in California? ABC 10 political reporter Jenny Hub breaks it down.
The bill passed Congress with bipartisan support, but President Trump never signed it. And because he took no action, the 21st Century Road to Housing Act became the law. Now Governor Newsom is weighing in while facing questions about a housing promise he made during his January State of the State address.
In January, Newsom promised more oversight and enforcement of corporations buying up single-family homes and turning them into rentals. It's an issue where Newsom and President Trump actually agree, arguing corporate buyers are leaving fewer homes for families and first-time buyers. But there hasn't been action since Newsom's speech, and a legislative effort by Democratic Assemblymember Alex Lee to ban corporations from buying more than 1,000 single-family homes just died in committee. Any updates on that promise?
Yeah, there's been a lot of us are promoting that. The good news is, remarkably, the president may not be familiar because he didn't take the time to sign a bill, that what we were promoting, and by the way, take a look at that housing bill that was done federally, looks a lot like what we've been doing here in the state of California. In so many ways, it neuters the need, not completely, but substantially, for the state of California to move forward. That said, there are a number of bills and discussions and amendments that are in play.
Newsom now relying heavily on the federal effort, which bans corporations with 350 homes from buying more, though it does exempt build-to-rent projects. As for how the rest of the bill may affect California, housing experts say only time will tell.
They don't exactly take effect immediately. What they do is they direct federal agencies to write new rules and grant guidelines. I think it's a helpful layer on top of what California has been doing, continues to do. But my assessment is that what goes on in Sacramento and what goes on in counties and cities across California is ultimately going to matter a lot more.
Ellen Berube says while there's not much new funding, the federal bill does expand on state and local efforts, including streamlining permitting and new incentives to build more. Jenny Hutt, ABC 10.
Still ahead, a legal battle is brewing over California's parole rules, why critics say they could open the door to release for some inmates. And changing the clocks twice a year, well, that could be a thing of the past. Congress takes up the issue to make daylight saving time permanent.
And we were well into the triple digits today. We're back in the triple digits tomorrow, but some more seasonal weather on the way by the end of the work week. I've got a forecast coming up after the break.
But first, another headlines tonight. A plane flipped over at the Auburn airport this afternoon. Fire crews say the plane veered off the runway and flipped over onto its roof. No one was hurt, but the runway was closed until crews could remove the plane. A man was stabbed to death overnight in Sacramento's McClatchy Park. Officers responded to reports of an assault and found a man with a stab wound. A homicide investigation is now underway. And more work is being done on the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. President Trump says the landmark was drained on Monday. He claims vandals are responsible for gashing the lining of the pool. Since April, the Trump administration has spent more than $14 million on renovating the pool.
I could feel it in my bones when I woke up this morning. I was like, it is going to be hot today. Hottest day of the year, actually. My question, though, how long is this continuing? Should we expect triple digits through the rest of the week? I think is the big question for everyone's ACs to be prepared.
Yeah. Well, not through the rest of the week. Through tomorrow, yes. We're going to have another pretty similar day where highs in the valley, 100 degrees plus. By the end of the week, though, we're back towards seasonal. Into the weekend, I've got another push of monsoon moisture on the way in. More on that in a second. 104 in Sacramento this afternoon, 105 in Stockton, 104 in Modesto, some 90s to low hundreds in the foothills, upper 70s and low 80s in the high country. We are still 100 degrees or warmer across much of the valley. 103 in Sacramento, 101 Stockton, 103 in Modesto. We're starting to see that onshore wind picking up, which will help to cool us down, but it is going to be a slow cool down. 103 as we look towards the Tower Bridge. That is 13 degrees warmer than this time yesterday. Still in the 90s by 9 o'clock. Still in the 80s as we approach midnight tonight. So Wednesday morning, it's going to be warm. We are starting off in the upper 60s to near 70 across the valley. Some mid 70s in the foothills. Wednesday afternoon, another very hot day. 101 Sacramento, 101 in Stockton, 102 in Modesto, 108 up in Colusa, 105 in Oroville. Some upper 90s, low hundreds across the foothills and through the mother lode. One thing that'll be different, we'll start to see some stronger winds picking up through the late afternoon into the evening. So widespread onshore winds, but this is prompting actually some PG&E public safety power shutoff warnings, and this is mainly out along the coast in the San Francisco Bay Area and down through the Monterey Bay Area. But one of the areas that we'll be watching for is right along I-580 towards the Altamont Pass and towards the western side of Tracy, again along and west of I-580, and that is because you see these wind gusts here over 30 to 40 miles per hour from Wednesday evening through Thursday afternoon. So an extended period here with some very gusty winds that is leading to elevated to high fire danger for that area. And high pressure will continue to dominate our weather pattern as we head into the weekend. But by the time we get to the weekend, it's going to bring in some more monsoon moisture. So it's going to be a little more cloudy, a little more sticky, another chance for high country showers and thunder, all by the time we get to the weekend. But tomorrow's a repeat of today, hot and sunny.
All right, Brendan, thank you. Still ahead, inflation is showing signs of cooling, but prices are still high for many Americans. What the latest numbers mean for your wallet. And ICE is pausing most vehicle stops nationwide. What the new directive means for immigration enforcement. All right, let's talk about a new legal fight that's brewing over California's parole system. A group says new guidelines could create a pathway for some of the most violent offenders to get reduced time behind bars. The regulations do not take effect until October, but opponents say if they wait until then, it could be too late. ABC 10's Garsh Palsanga has that story for us tonight.
A nonprofit called the Criminal Justice Legal Foundation says it plans to file a lawsuit this week to block a new parole board regulation, arguing they create a new pathway for some long-term inmates to seek shortened sentences or clemency.
When I found out, my jaw dropped.
Anne Marie Schubert is the president of the Criminal Justice Legal Foundation and a former Sacramento County District Attorney. She argues the regulations could allow some people serving life without the possibility of parole to seek release.
Life without parole really should mean life without parole. We have an administrative agency that is going to implement regulations that have a massive impact on sentencing in California. That's essentially rewriting sentencing laws that didn't go through legislative process.
State documents say the regulations create a structured process for eligible long-term incarcerated people to be considered for a recommendation to the governor or to a court for resentencing. It also says this isn't a parole hearing, and people sentenced to death, registered sex offenders, and several other categories are excluded.
There's some in this industry that believe that those individuals will sue because they think they should be included. So we're opening up this Pandora's box that is really going to destroy victims' rights and finality of sentences.
Schubert points to the 2009 murder of 8-year-old Sandra Cantu. Melissa Huckabee pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Schubert says that is one of the cases that could be impacted.
Horrible. horrific crime for a woman who should never be released from prison, period. That was part of the plea agreement. Now, that is one of many, many cases that families and victims are really distraught about at this possibility that somebody could then be allowed to be released from prison. Our goal is to raise the alarms, stop this madness, and tell these bureaucrats enough is enough, quite frankly.
A news conference is scheduled for tomorrow where the family of Sandra Cantu and other victims' families are expected to speak in support of the lawsuit. We reached out to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. A spokesperson told ABC 10, quote, CDCR has not been served with this litigation and is not able to comment at this time. Well, a man running from an encounter with ICE and other federal agents in Florida died this morning after he was hit by a semi-truck. Authorities say the 28-year-old was among 4 people in a vehicle that was stopped in the parking lot of a gas station. Police say during the encounter with agents, they all ran off. One of them darted across a busy road into the path of the truck. This is the 3rd death in about a week involving encounters with ICE agents. And this comes as Immigration and Customs Enforcement has paused most vehicle stops. The directive applies to ICE's Enforcement and Removal Operations Division, which handles arrests and deportations of undocumented immigrants. Agents are being told to avoid initiating traffic stops and instead work with partner agencies when serving criminal warrants involving people in vehicles. And jumping into your price points tonight, overall inflation slowed during the month of June, according to government data released just this morning. But there's more to the story for weary consumers.
White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett touting Tuesday's inflation data from the Labor Department.
It's really about the best CPI report we've seen in 6 years.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics said the Consumer Price Index dropped 0.4% between May and June, the largest month-to-month drop since April 2020. Falling oil and gas prices in June, thanks to the fragile ceasefire with Iran, largely accounted for the monthly drop. But the annual pace of price hikes increased 3.5%, well above the Federal Reserve's target of 2% and continuing to squeeze consumers.
If you look at the core CPI and the year-over-year data, we're still elevated.
Among the sectors driving the year-over-year number higher, food prices are up 3%, boosted by price climbs for items like meat, milk, and vegetables. Apparel is up almost 4% over last year, and airfares up more than 26%. Federal Reserve Chairman Kevin Warsh was on Capitol Hill Tuesday morning for scheduled testimony and also cast the monthly drop as just one data point.
There might be some that look at this morning's data and say, oh, mission accomplished, everything is swell. That is not my view.
Appearing before lawmakers for the first time in the role, Warsh made a bold promise for his central bank.
And if we get policy right, and I can assure you we will, the inflation surge of the last 5 years will be a thing of the past.
Still ahead, making daylight saving time permanent, the latest actions in Congress, and what happened the last time it was approved. All right, before we go here, today the U.S. House passed a bill to make daylight saving time permanent and now heads to the Senate. And President Trump says that he has been in favor of this legislation. Now, if the bill becomes law, it would end the twice yearly changing of the clocks, but does allow states to opt out. Back in 2018, California voters approved Proposition 7, which gave the state legislature the power to change daylight saving time as long as the federal government approved it. We spoke to State Senator Roger Nilo tonight about the issue. He has been pushing for California to observe standard time, not daylight saving time like Arizona and Hawaii.
The question is, will the authorization allow for states to continue to do the switch, or alternatively go to a permanent standard time? And I just don't know that. But I will tell you that in my efforts to go to permanent standard time, we had a common effort in the western end of the country to do that.
Nilo says in the 1970s, the federal government enacted year-round daylight saving time, which made the winter mornings too dark, and Congress repealed it. People in favor of Congress changing it again argue this would spare Americans from having to change their clocks, disrupting sleep schedules and causing more seasonal depression. We will see where this current push heads next. Every year, it never fails in my news crew. Every year, people always want to know about daylight saving time. So I am very curious to see where this goes next. Of course, if you have any questions or want to know something that you think our team should be looking into, you can always reach out to us at tothepoint@abc10.com. As always, thank you so much for watching, for always inviting us into your home. And don't forget, you can always download our free ABC 10 TV streaming app straight to your TV to catch up on any stories that you might have missed. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Have a great night.